Final hour in-game live college football game day here on SportsGrid. Thanks to everyone watching across SportsGrid TV or listening on SportsGrid Radio, Sirius XM channel 159. However, you are finding us even on social media. We greatly appreciate you. Thanks to all of our guests, to Matt and everybody behind the scenes. We've got, like I said, hour to go, and we will let you know if we see any in-game betting opportunities across college football, previewing the NFL, hoping to make you richer come the end of Sunday as well. So, Brady, let's get into some of these NFL games. We've been talking about a lot of them, obviously, across the circuit contests and with our guest, Sia Najad, earlier. But right now, an opportunity for the two of us to kind of dive in on these. And why don't we start with the Chargers and Falcons? Again, interesting one. I think the consensus is, I don't know where to go with this game. Chargers 1.5 point favorites, depending on where you do your shopping. They come in 7-4 at the 6-5 Falcons. Chargers a trend if you're interested in. Chargers 8-2-1 against the spread in the first half this season, allowing less than 6 points per game in the opening half, while the Falcons 31st with an average of 15 points per game allowed in the opening half. The Chargers allowing just 3.4 first half points per game on the road. Now, as we know, LA blew a 10-0 lead on the way to a loss to the Ravens last time out. The Falcons, an atrocious pass defense, solid against the run. It's not really going to matter because J.K. Dobbins placed on injured reserve. He is not playing. Gus Edwards probably not going to do anything anyway. So the run game, you can sort of remove it. You take a look, obviously, as far as the pass defense and whether guys like Johnston, Palmer, obviously McConkey, these guys are capable for the Chargers, what they can do on the other side. You know, we had Sia talking a lot about Bijan Robinson. He's been terrific lately. It's a great matchup for him on the ground this week against a poor run defense. Jim Harbaugh team, or John Harbaugh teams. Jim? I confuse the two all the time. Harbaugh. How about I say Harbaugh? Jim.
Yeah, there
Jim,
you go.
That's what I thought. Go with your gut. Jim Harbaugh, his team's 8-1 against the spread in 1 p.m. East Coast games. That includes his time with the Niners, by the way. The only loss coming against the Steelers this year, a game that Justin Herbert left early with an injury. So I am inclined to say go with the favorite, but I don't have a strong lean on it. How do you feel about this game?
Yeah, this one's a really tough one, and I think there's a lot of people on both sides of the fence here. And even within my own handicap, I kind of have, justification for either side. I thought the Chargers should be a 3-point favorite. It opened up 1.5. There was a quick little tick to 2, and then it was bet back down. So even the market has been a little bit fickle here. But I think the situation is heavily in favor of the Atlanta Falcons here. Now, let's take a look at what we last saw. We know, Adam, how the public typically bets. They remember only what they saw last. And what they saw last out of the Atlanta Falcons was them getting drubbed by the Denver Broncos at Mile High a couple of weeks ago. Well, they have since had a bye week to work out their problems and what have you. Meanwhile, the Chargers play on Monday night. So it's a short week and then the travel across the country. And not only was it a short week, but it's Monday night under the spotlight with that very emotional game against his brother, John Harbaugh, in a losing effort where, again, I think it was further exposing this defense that's pretty darn good. Let's give them credit. But they've played some really good offenses lately in the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens, and they haven't quite looked the same. And we know that the Atlanta Falcons is a pretty good offense as well. So I think this situation screams Falcons here. We did take the Falcons on one of our contest plays. I have not bet the Falcons, and I probably won't. But I kind of feel like that is the right side this week. And this is another thing that a friend of mine passed along to me that I thought was very interesting. On Twitter, a guy by the name, apparently, I've never seen this account before, a guy by the name of Tom Bliss, at Data with Bliss. And he measures 4 different categories: opponents dropped interceptions, opponents dropped receptions, opponents kicking and fumble recoveries by either team. It's a measurement of odd occurrences where it's kind of an injection of luck. An interception at the end of the game that a guy should have, had to close out the game and he drops it, or a field goal, an easy field goal that's missed, yada, 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 all this type of thing, a measurement of those 4 categories there. And if you look at what team through the first 12 weeks of the season has been most fortunate with all those categories, the highest score in those categories, the luckiest team, if you will, the Los Angeles Chargers. The team that has had the most misfortune, the team on the completely other end of the spectrum, the team that has had no luck at all in those areas, the Atlanta Falcons. And here they face each other in week 13. So very interesting. And I think there's some weight to that. I think there's some legitimacy to that type of measurement. So, maybe there's another little edge for you for the Atlanta Falcons if you happen to like that side.
Not a lot of time left in this segment, so let's give it to a game that doesn't really warrant a lot of time. That is the Colts at the Patriots. Indianapolis, universally a 2.5-point favorite in New England. Colts have generally been a cover machine this year, 8-4 against the spread, coming off an ugly loss to the Lions last time out in a game. A lot of people thought Indianapolis would cover and did not come close. They expect to be missing Josh Downs, shoulder injury. Michael Pittman has looked better of late, so there's that, but even still, this Indy team is nothing special. The thing is, they've beaten the bad teams. Teams they've beaten this year: Steelers, Titans, Dolphins, Jets, Bears. I think that's kind of the appropriate class for the New England Patriots, unfortunately, who are, for me anyway, who are 2-11-2 against the spread in their last 14 games as a home underdog as well. So, and couple that with, the Patriots do not have a particularly good rush defense. Jonathan Taylor is poised for a solid game. It has to be Indianapolis or pass, right?
Yeah, it's about the number here, Adam. And it's also about me being scared to take the Patriots. I've played the Patriots, I want to say, almost a handful of times this season. And I'm losing on the Patriots. I know that. I had them. It seems like a couple weeks in a row, and they, right when it looked like they were starting to improve and they were playing hard, and Drake May looked like to be, ascending in the quarterback position. And then they slipped the last couple of weeks again. So they have disappointed me, and I think I'm a little gun shy with the Patriots right now. Getting a full field goal, I think I kind of like them, but it's 2.5 just about everywhere, and I'm not really in love with laying the favorite. My numbers absolutely come to the favorite. I have Indianapolis by 5. Now, I personally made the number 2.5 myself, but when I crunch all the numbers, I come out with Indy by 5. So it's a contradiction of kind of leaning towards the home dog here with what my numbers tell me. And also, like I say, being gun shy about New England. And I'm with you. I don't think the Colts are all that impressive. If you look at where they fall statistically, it's almost any stat you look up, they're somewhere between 14 and 18 as far as the league ranking. They are the epitome of average. So it's it's a game I'm going to pass on. And I don't have a strong opinion either way here, Adam.
This will shock you, but Indiana scored again. It is. I saw. Is it 59-0?
Yeah.
59-0. Oh, and it's unreal. And now they're at the Purdue 23. More points are coming. 8:40 to go in the fourth quarter. Indiana's about to get into the 60s here. Texas still up 17-0 at A&M, and also 3rd and 4 at the A&M 7-yard line. So,
our producer said
I'm told A&M just got a pick 6. All right, let's wake up.
We're Aggies. On the board, Adam. Go Aggies.
Kansas State passing touchdown as well. It's about to be 24-21.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
We're back in-game live, college football game day. We're talking through some NFL, Brady and I, and of course, right after that, Texas A&M pick six. So a 17-7 game. New life for the Aggies. Those of us that are on the plus 5.5 or 6.5, wherever you ended up getting that number, even closer to close at 4.5. Let's root on another touchdown for Texas A&M. Obviously, the defense has stepped up of late, so that's a good thing. But taking a look here, Steelers and Bengals, Brady. This is a 2.5-point spread in some spots. FanDuel, I see 2.5. It's 3 most everywhere else, so you get the full field goal if you did want to back the Mike Tomlin Dogs. The total in this game is 47.5. Actually, there's a 46.5 out there as well that I see over on ESPN Bet. So there's a range here, but I bring that up because the over has hit in 4 straight Bengals home games, including totals of 65, 79, and 71. Steelers games have hit the over in 4 straight road games. So, that when you think about obviously what the Bengals offense is capable of, obviously when at their full potential with not only Burrow, but Jace T. Higgins when he is involved, and he is in a solid spot as the Steelers do struggle with outside receivers. Russell Wilson, though I am on the under for his passing yards on the season, which I thought would have been an effortless cash with all that sitting he did to start the year. Somehow, some way, he is making that thing sweaty because he has turned back the clock a little bit and now is going up against a very poor Bengals secondary that has allowed absurd number of points on a weekly basis, which again plays into that over that I mentioned before. The Bengals in general, and I do want your thoughts on the total after those numbers that I gave you, but this I think is the overwhelming conversation that surrounds the Bengals and whether or not we should be taking them or thinking about taking them against a Mike Tomlin team that, again, Tomlin 62-34 against the spread as an underdog. Probably even better, percentage-wise as a road underdog. The Bengals, we keep saying they're going to rebound. They're going to rebound. They're fighting for their season. They're going to find a way, and they're in a lot of these games, and then piss them away. The blown opportunity multiple times over against the Chargers. The Ravens blowing big leads, double-digit leads a couple of times. The only teams that they have beaten are the Raiders, the Browns, the Giants, and the Panthers.
Yeah.
It begs the
that
question
says a lot,
as to
doesn't
why.
it?
it begs the question as to why they're even favorites this week.
Yeah.
And whether or not they're actually even a, never mind good team, mediocre team, or just a team that has, a lot of good names on offense.
Well, it's great that you point out who they've beaten, because I have kind of been on the side all season long that this team's not very good at all. They do have a very good offense, and they have a very poor defense. So if you average that out, they're an average team, right? I don't know if they're even average. Like I say, they have a very much above average offense, but I mean, those teams that they've beaten, those are not good teams. And you talk about why are they even favored in this game? Just my own thoughts. I made Pittsburgh a 1-point favorite in this game. And then when I crunch all the stats, every set of stats I run come out to the Steelers as a favorite in this game. And in the end, I come out with Pittsburgh favored by 4.5. So yeah, the odds makers just seem to think that, this offense is enough to carry them. I do think there is, if you like Cincinnati in this game, there's the threat. Pittsburgh, I don't think, wants to get into a shootout with anybody. And if it becomes a little bit of a shootout here, if the Bengals can solve the Pittsburgh defense, then they could absolutely win this game, because Pittsburgh, I don't think, has the offense to keep up in a track meet with the Cincinnati Bengals. But if the Pittsburgh defense can do what they do, force turnovers, and bring this game to a grinding halt and slow down that Cincinnati offense, then they should win it outright. And that's kind of what I'm banking on here. I'm not playing the Steelers. I did play them, as we went over earlier. We played them in the Circa Millions contest, where they are getting 3. They're getting 2.5 in the Westgate Super Contest. So a big difference there. I won't be taking them in the Super Contest, where they're getting less than a field goal, but getting the full 3, I side with the Steelers here, if what I think should happen does indeed play out. But I said there is the danger of this becoming a shootout, and I don't think Pittsburgh can keep up with the Bengals offense.
Brady, the Vikings, who of course are represented in Circa Survivors, we talked about earlier, 3.5-point favorites at home against the Cardinals. I'm sure the Circa participants who went with Minnesota are well aware of the stat I'm about to give you, and that is that Arizona is 0-11 straight up in Minnesota all time. That dates back to 1991, going 2-7-2 against the spread. Now, Kyler Murray is facing a team that blitzes more than anyone in the NFL. He's excellent against the blitz, however. He is also 18-9 ATS in his career as an underdog. It's a great matchup for Trey McBride. The Vikings not very good against tight ends, and he is one of the stellar young tight ends in this league, as we know. I mean, he's no Brock Bowers, but he's had himself some excellent weeks over the last couple of years. What are your expectations here?
Well, we talked about this one with Sia, and I think it's a very interesting. It's all about that hook on top of the 3, right? If it was just 3, I don't know if I'd be playing the Arizona Cardinals here, but I did play them getting 3.5. And we talk about what the Minnesota Vikings have done lately. I think one thing they've done lately is regress. They aren't nearly as impressive as they were to begin this season. And these 4 wins in a row that they have not been over impressive opponents. They've beaten the Colts, they've beaten the Jaguars, they've beaten the Titans, and they've beaten the Bears, and they haven't exactly blown them out at all. I also mentioned that Caleb Williams is the first mobile quarterback they've faced all year, and they didn't crush him. They didn't blow him out of the building. I wonder if they'll have trouble with Kyler Murray. The one thing going in their favor is the scheduling spot for the Cardinals. They lost to the Seahawks last week. They host the Seahawks next week. That's a weird little spot here. We'll wonder if they can show up against Minnesota. I think they do.
We've got more games to discuss across a busy Sunday in the NFL. That is on the way here on IGL College Football Game Day.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In-game live college football game day. We're going through these NFL games, Brady and I, and brings us to the Seahawks at the Jets, which is awfully close to a pick'em anyway here. We've got the latest odds showing, pick'em some places 1.5 point favorites for the road Seahawks. In others, depends again where you look. I like to bring up Narrative Street all the time, Brady, and of course, it's the Geno Smith facing his old team, the Jets at the Meadowlands. Some of the trends that I was looking at, courtesy of my friends over at Toad Sports. Geno Smith has gone over 12.5 rushing yards, his prop, in 6 of his last 8 games. He has gone over 236.5 passing yards, his prop, in 7 of his last 10 games. He has gone over 3.5 rushing attempts in 8 of his last 11 games. He has also, if we do want to throw a bone to the Jets defense, thrown at least 1 interception in 8 of his last 11 games. How are we feeling about the Seahawks and Geno Smith in this contest?
It's funny that you say that about the interceptions, because we were talking with Sia Najad earlier, and I said, I think, Geno's always good for at least 1 interception. Well, it seems that's just about completely accurate this season. I mentioned one of my favorite situations, and we have not seen this pop up a whole lot this season because I look for it each and every week, and it's finally reared its head again. And that is a team that wins outright as a home underdog, and then the following week goes into the role of road favorite. I want to say it's in the neighborhood of 65% of the time that team as the road favorite in the follow-up week does not cover the number. And it's easy to explain why that happens. You have a team that kind of surprises. They win outright at home as an underdog, and then that line becomes inflated when they go on the road into the role of road favorite. So, I think it's easy to understand if that line is a little bit inflated versus where it should be, it makes sense that they're not covering more often than not. And then you couple that with the fact that the Jets, who have been a mess, we all know that, are coming off of a bye week. So they've had an opportunity to pause and reset and hopefully clean up their act a little bit. So I think that, coupled with the bad situation for Seattle, is a positive for the Jets. And I played the Jets here +2. There's 1.5s out there. There's ones there. We've seen the money really come in on New York, and it's hard to play this Jets team. And like we talked about earlier, Adam, I could be completely wrong. Seattle could blow them out, but I don't think at the end of the day, Seattle's very good. We talked about it on the program last week. There was a ton of road favorites last week. Is Arizona really deserving yet of being a road favorite? Apparently they weren't. Is Seattle deserving of being a road favorite? I say heck no. And then we talk about the scheduling spot. It's a bad one for Arizona going to Minnesota. They are off of the Seahawks game. They host the Seahawks next week. Well, it's the same thing for Seattle. They beat Arizona. Now they travel all the way across the country. Then they got to go back to the desert and play Arizona again. So a little sandwich spot, a lot of situational favors or factors here in favor of the New York Jets, I believe. And that's the side I'm rolling with.
Jets are 2-9 against the spread their last 11 games as an underdog, 1-7 ATS in their last 8 overall as well. First game for Aaron Rodgers, I mentioned this earlier, since the report that he wants to play elsewhere next year. You know, we were the team that obviously shares a building there in the Meadowlands, the Giants. We had this conversation a couple weeks back in the first game with Tommy DeVito after Daniel Jones was benched, ultimately cut. It was, how's that locker room feel about DJ? And is it divided? Are guys upset about it? We know obviously some were. And so are there guys playing for DeVito? Basically was the question. Do you believe that there are still guys in this Jets locker room that are playing for Aaron Rodgers?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I did hear Garrett Wilson talk about, hey, the fact is we're all professional football players and we're extremely competitive and we're trying to finish strong. And, who knows what might happen if we just keep winning games. It was some positive commentary on behalf of Wilson. But yeah, I'm not extremely thrilled about playing the Jets. They burned me a couple times already this season, but I just cannot ignore the very strong situation in their favor this particular week.
All right, we'll continue to make our way around the NFL. At the end of 3, Texas and Texas A&M, that is still somehow a 10-point game, and A&M with the ball. There were no points on that last drive out of Texas, so there's hope yet, Brady.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Back with Brady. So we have another Indiana touchdown, 66-0. And, oh, by the way, Indiana has the ball at the Purdue 41 with a minute left in the fourth quarter. Will they stop? Will they relent? Or are they going for 70-plus? What's the move going to be, Signetti? I can't wait to find out. Oregon blasting Washington. It is 42-14 in that one. 7 minutes to go. A&M with the ball deep in its own territory, down by 10, but a touchdown, and it's the start of the fourth quarter. A touchdown will go a long way, obviously, toward us, cashing the spread. Iowa State now at the KSU 20, leading 26-21, 13 minutes and change left in this one, but an opportunity to tack on another touchdown here, or at least go up by 8 if they don't screw it up. Nevada with the ball, end of 3, but trailing 31-7 at UNLV. Houston BYU, 5 minutes in, scoreless, but that could change. Houston is first and 15 at the BYU 19 right now. So we'll keep you posted on what winds up happening across the college football landscape. We are making our way around the NFL here. Titans Commanders. Titans 0-7 against the spread after a win since the start of last year, Brady. The Commanders 5-2 ATS as a favorite so far. Tennessee 2-9 against the spread overall this year. Just figure I should mention that. This one has a spread of 6.5. There's a 6.5 on FanDuel if you did want to bet the Titans. It is 6 just about everywhere else, with obviously the Commanders the favorite in this one. Will Levis sacked 9 times against the Texans last time out. He's going to face a lot of pressure, you would think, from the Commanders. They blitz heavy and often. They're not the Vikings, but they blitz a fair amount, obviously. And as we know, Levis is mistake prone, so don't be surprised. You might want to consider investing in a Commanders defensive touchdown, basically, is what I'm saying here in this one. Commanders, they had mentioned it with Sia earlier. Brady came off that shocking loss to the Cowboys last time out as a double-digit favorite at home, no less. Jaden Daniels didn't quite look right, whether the pressure that he faced, the ribs, rookie wall, label it however you want to. He hasn't been at the top of his game in a little while now, and some of that has been masked by late game heroics like what we saw with that Hail Mary against the Bears a few weeks back, obviously. But he's going to have time to work, The Titans, they do not pressure well. Secondary is banged up. We know he's got some options to work with. Brian Robinson is returning, so that is a help for the run game. Titans are very good against the run, so that's a problematic area to begin with. But to at least have some personnel, that helps, versus, Robinson and Eckler both being out or something like that. But again, I know that, sort of cutting to the chase on this, you are more inclined to bet the Titans than I am. I like the Commanders here in this one, but it's a tough one to feel particularly good about either side of the spread.
I totally agree with you. This is a real stay away situation for me. And I mentioned it earlier that, the Titans look like a nice bet, it seems like, every week. Well, they're 2-9 against the spread this season. So you've only been right a couple of times, one of which was last week when I really liked them against the Texans, and I just didn't have the guts to pull the trigger because they disappoint you more often than not. And that's what has me scared here. I made the number 4.5 in favor of the Commanders. When I crunch all the stats, I come out to the Commanders 5.5. So, there's not a huge advantage there, but I feel like getting 6 or 6.5 that the Titans would be the side to play. But I can't get there, Adam. I lack confidence in this team, and they have not delivered on a number of occasions this season. 2-9 against the number. It's hard to bet a team when you're continually being burned by them. I think I bet on them. I want to say 3 times this year, and I'm 0 for 3.
Just to update people, A&M with about 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter is out to Texas territory, 2nd and 10 at the Texas 44. So Let's hold out hope here, folks. If you are on the A&M side of things, as it feels like just about everybody in the industry is. Oregon first and goal to Washington 17, so potentially more points for the Ducks on the way. And Cignetti and company took their feet off the gas, and that one has gone final 66-0. Indiana absolutely pounded Purdue today. So continuing to look around the NFL here, and not all these games are pretty, obviously. We're saving some of the really good ones that we've already discussed in part with our guest Sia earlier, but for a little bit later here. We're down to about 20 some odd minutes left in this show. Texans Jaguars. I don't need to rant about this one. I already have. I have no respect for the Jaguars. I have little for Trevor Lawrence. I just don't like this team. I know that he expects to be back. I think it's how could you not bet the spread if it is Mac Jones? But I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to play. I'm still inclined to, lay the points with the Texans. They are 9-2 straight up after a loss since the start of last season. They are, of course, coming off that loss to the Titans as 8-point favorites, no less. How do you see this one?
Well, I made the number 4, so I was very surprised to see this open or, get as high as 5.5, 6. And it was pretty quickly bet down. And then, of course, it was bet down again when Trevor Lawrence, was upgraded to probable. Now we're seeing 3.5 basically across the market. So in the contests out here in town, you're really getting some line value with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's not just Trevor Lawrence. They're getting a lot of offensive players back healthy for this one, including the running back Bixby, who's really been probably the best player on offense for the Jaguars. They're out of a bye week. You remember earlier this year, they probably should have beaten the Texans. They were very competitive in that game with Houston. And like I say, probably should have won that game on the road. The Texans, I think, have proven, Adam. I mean, this team is not necessarily exceeding expectations. They kind of tend to play down to their competition. They're not blowing people out. They lose to the Titans last week, a second straight division game here this week. Now they're a road favorite against a team that is coming out of a bye week that, the last time we saw them just got pummeled by the Detroit Lions. So I think the situation, again, definitely favors the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think, if you got to the party early here, you got a great number and you've got a lot of closing line value. I think probably about 3 or so is the right number. You might see it close 3. You can still get 3.5. Maybe you want to take it. But 4.5, 5, I think was way too many for me.
Joe Mixon is facing a defense that, well, there are a couple things. One, the Texans, we know how often they run
Jacksonville doesn't have a defense, do they?
Well, that's what I mean. The Jaguars' run defense is atrocious, and Mixon.
So is their pass defense.
Also true, but the Texans, they love to run the football. Even when it's not an opportune time to run the football, they run the football. Joe Mixon is routinely. I know last week, notwithstanding, when they were coming from behind all game and only had 14 carries, but generally he is at like 25 carries. He has gone for 100-plus rushing yards in 5 of his last 7 games, and I'm looking around, and his rushing prop is in the low 80s. I mean, doesn't that feel like an overspot to you? Well,
yes, given the statistics and the Jacksonville defense, or lack thereof, like I say. But that's a big number. Adam, you play a lot of props, a lot more than I do. You see a rushing prop of 80-something yards. That's a big nut to crack. I would feel much. Yeah, I mean, you're basically just banking on the guy going for 100 again, and that's probably in the minority as far as how often that happens. Even though it says the history's there and everything. Again, I think this is a spot for the Jags. They've had an extra week to prepare for Joe Mixon in those 100-yard games and everything that the Texans present. They should have beaten this team earlier this year, a division contest. For a team that has been underachieving, again, we talk about, are you deserving of being a road favorite? Are the Texans deserving of, laying 4, 5, 6 points? Well, the market has said no, and they bet it down.
Texas has the ball back, which is unfortunate. No points for A&M on that last possession. About 11 minutes to go, though, in regulation. It's a 17-7 game. Texas is leading and is at its own 20. Oregon has scored again, 49-14, leading Washington at home. Iowa State up by 5 at KSU 18 and UNLV 38-7.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Back with Brady. We're looking at the NFL tomorrow. How about Rams Saints? We haven't spent a lot of time on this one so far, Brady, and it's an interesting spot. I know it's Rams are represented in Circa Survivor just a little bit. 2.5 3-point favorites. I see a 3 over on DraftKings. If you did want to back the Saints with the field goal, it looks like mostly 2.5 elsewhere. So the Rams, they're coming off that embarrassing nationally televised loss to the Eagles, but they are 11-2 against the spread in their last 13 December games under Sean McVay. Something to be said for good coaching, right? Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp positioned well to thrive in this matchup. Matt Stafford is protected well. The O-line is pretty healthy. The Saints, one of the worst in the league against slot receivers, obviously bodes well for Cooper Kupp, who is already an absurd talent and has looked better of late. Kyron Williams facing a bottom 10 rush defense. There's just reason after reason in my mind to support the narrowly favored Rams, chalky as that does feel. What's your argument for the Saints? Is there one?
This not much. This is another one that I think is very difficult, Adam, and you spell out a lot of reasons there why I don't like the New Orleans side. Clearly, in my opinion, a coaching mismatch with the interim coach for New Orleans against Sean McVay, one of the very best in the business. But all that being said, I made the Rams a 1-point road favorite, and then it opens up 3. And I was like, wow, that seems aggressive. And the market reacted, towards the side I'm thinking that, it's been bet down to 2.5 and basically 2.5 everywhere, which is a great number if you want to lay it with the favorite, not a great number if you want to play the home dog here. The other thing that I think goes against New Orleans rather, is they fire Dennis Allen, they get the new coach in there, and bang, they get the new coach bounce, and they win a couple of games in a row. And then, all that positive mojo that they had going is stopped by a bye week. And what I say about a team that's on a roll that goes into a bye, I like to bet against them coming out the other side. So but I'm not real confident in the Saints either. I still don't think they're a very good team at all. So, and the Rams are very fickle. One week they look like world beaters, and then they, are beaten to a pulp by the Eagles like they were last time out. So this is stay away from me. My numbers say Saints, but I'm not going to get to the window with it.
Eagles, Ravens. Now, these two games, we'll see if we have time for Monday, but these two games in particular, really, really interesting, obviously. It's a reason why we started with these two, and we were chatting with Sia earlier. Eagles, Ravens are in that late window on Sunday, 9-2 against 8-4, a couple of teams that we fully expect to see in the postseason. Neither one is a monster against the spread, that's for sure. Philadelphia 7-4, Baltimore 6-5-1. Ravens games tend to go over, 10-2 to the over, whereas the Eagles 6-5 to the under. Great matchup for Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown against an awful secondary, allows big plays all the time. I have seen lots of people laddering up A.J. Brown to the moon tomorrow. I invested in him at, a century mark, 100-plus receiving yards. Ravens terrible against the tight end position, so Dallas Goedert could get some attention. We don't know yet about Devonta Smith's status as to whether he'll play in this game. Saquon Barkley is coming off the career game, could be lethal in this contest as well. The Ravens are, just in terms of a trend, 11-4 straight up in the second half over the last 15 games dating back to last year. So a good second half team. I don't know if you want to invest in them for the full game, but something to consider as well. We've seen lots of comebacks, and I guess the only other thing that I'll mention is the Eagles are, pretty stout against the run. And so, while I do look at guys like Derrick Henry and even to a degree Lamar Jackson, from a rushing standpoint as kind of matchup proof, they're just that talented, they're that good. The Eagles defense does command some respect in that category. So I'm curious to know in a game that, is such a tight spread, another one that's, a field goal, just inside a field goal, where do you go here?
Well, I went with the Eagles. We took them in the football contest out here in Las Vegas at 3. I was kind of surprised not only to see this number open at 3, but really to stay there throughout the week. Now, finally, we've started to see some activity come in on the Philadelphia Eagles, and those 3s out there in the market are becoming weak 3s, like 3 minus 105 type of stuff. We may get to 2.5 at close, but I think as soon as we get to 2.5, you'll probably get people hammering the favorite. So it's hard to say where this game is going to close. It depends on who you like. If you can find a 2.5 and you like the Ravens, go get it. But don't bet the Eagles at anything less than 3. I made the number pick 'em, Adam. I would say the Eagles are slightly the better team. Okay, so I'm going to give Baltimore, a 1.5, maybe 2. Maybe even just 1 point for home field advantage. I've read a lot of stuff out there these days that says home field advantage is almost nil. But 1.5 is pretty much standard. So if I'm saying the game is a pick 'em, then that means the Eagles, in my mind, are about 1.5 better. And that's really just because of the problems that Baltimore has in defending the pass. Otherwise, they're very good in all other facets of the game and maybe the very best offense in football and probably the most dangerous two-headed monster in Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But I think with Philadelphia being the better defensive team, Baltimore's good against the run too. They should be able to slow down Saquon Barkley. But if Jalen Hurts is able to throw the ball over the yard, maybe throwing the ball to set up the run, right? So I was just surprised to see Philadelphia getting a full field goal, and that's the way I would go in this game. You mentioned Devonta Smith here in this game. I'm not seeing him on the injury. There he is, questionable. So still listed as questionable. That's a concern. You really would want both receivers available. You need the full contingent against this Ravens team. And the Ravens are relatively healthy as well. Kyle Van Noy listed as doubtful, but it looks like they'll get Roquan Smith back at linebacker for this game. So I think the teams are very similar. Like I say, really the only difference to me is the Eagles, I think, have the better defense. And if I have the better defense and 3 points, I'll take it.
Brady, Texas A&M, 2nd and goal at the Texas 2. 6:20 to go. Down by 10.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim to make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
We're back with you. A few more minutes. A&M is 4th and goal at the Texas 1. I mean, this is the spread. This is the game. Let's go. Down by 10. Need them in the end zone. Need a touchdown here. Field goal is not going to cut it. Not that they would go for one anyway. So get the job done. Aggies score. Matt, I'm going to need that update. The second it happens, Brady and I, our livelihood is riding on it. Might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but we're excited no less. All right, the Bills and the Niners, Brady, Sunday Night Football. We're going to have more time to preview this tomorrow night on In-Game Live Pro Football Game Day, obviously, and looking forward to it. But Bills, inside of 6 at FanDuel, -5.5. 6-point favorites just about everywhere else, it looks like. Brock Purdy expected back, which is obviously notable. This Niners team looked atrocious without him, despite its other pieces. Christian McCaffrey has kind of lacked the explosiveness that we're used to seeing from CMC since returning from his injury. You know, part of that last week was game script, obviously, but even still, he only mustered like 70 total yards rushing and receiving, and most of that was in the second half. So this matchup, you know, it's a defense that does struggle against running backs, both on the ground and in the air. And so it's a position for CMC ripe to exploit, obviously. We'll see if he's able to do so. I talked about the desperation factor earlier. Bills 9-2 to the over on their team total this season. That includes 5-0 at home, where they are averaging 35 points per game. Niners are allowing about 27 per game on the road. How do you attack this game?
It's funny, Adam, looking at my screen here, and I'm seeing it light up on the New Mexico-Hawaii affair that's going to kick off here in about 5 minutes. New Mexico up to a 6-point favorite, and they're betting the under, down to 59.5. So if you listened to Colby Dant earlier, now is the time to play the over in that one. I made this
A&M,
number
by the
9.
way, real quick, turned it over on downs. 3-yard loss on that 4th and goal try.
Well, It was the right thing to do to go for it, and now they've got Texas backed up. Maybe they can get the ball back one more time and get us through the back door. I made Buffalo a 9-point favorite, and that sounds crazy, but the look-ahead line in this game was Buffalo by 3.5, which I think makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm figuring with Trent Williams and Nick Bosa and Brock Purdy, I didn't think any of those guys were going to play. The weather, the road, everything going on. I figured that was about a 5 or 6 point adjustment there. So that's where I got from, say, 3.5 or 4 to 8 or 9 with my original number. Now, the book kind of put it in the middle there, like they were unsure if Purdy was going to play or not, and they opened with 7. Well, now it looks like Purdy's going to play. He's listed as probable, and we've seen this come down to 6 or 5.5 or so. He's listed as probable. Charvarius Ward, an excellent man in the secondary, looks like he's going to be back. You've got Jacob Cowing and an additional wide receiver, a return man there. They're all listed as probable. As far as out, Jordan Elliott on the defensive line, offensive lineman Aaron Banks, a big one here. Trent Williams is out. Nick Bosa is out. For the Bills, you've got Matt Milano, linebacker, listed as probable. That's a big deal. Dwayne Carter, questionable along the defensive line. Tight end Dalton Kincaid is out. Keon Coleman, wide receiver, questionable. Now, when I crunch all the numbers, all the stats, I come out with Buffalo by 4.5. I think that's a pretty good number right there. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Bills won by somewhere between 3 and 6 points. I don't have confidence to run to the window really with either side here. I just don't know what I'm getting out of the 49ers, Adam. We talked about it a little earlier. I don't think they have a ton of talent, but they're not playing well at all. And this is probably not a good situation in awful weather against a very good team to try and put it all together. I don't know what I'm going to get with them, and they could show up at any moment. So that's why I don't necessarily want to run to the window with Buffalo either.
All right, Brady, we only have a couple minutes left, maybe not even. What are your favorite plays this week?
Well, I have played the Cardinals plus 3.5. I have played the Jets plus 2. Maybe you just take the Jets on the money line at this point. I've also played a teaser with the Jacksonville Jaguars up to 10.5. Now, you're probably going to have to get a little creative with the teaser now. That was earlier in the week. I have the Jaguars and the Jets involved in that teaser, and I had the Packers. So those are really the only investments that I have other than my contest plays we talked about, the Jets, the Steelers, the Eagles, the Broncos. Haven't invested in those personally just yet.
All right, it's much more coming up on Sports Grid. Go nowhere. I'll be back with you tomorrow. In-game live pro football game day, 4:20 Eastern. Brady will be along as well. Thanks to Matt, everyone behind the scenes, all our guests.